What's up, everybody? It's Tier List Mills here, coming at you with a brand new metal ranked tier list. So if you are diamond and below, these are going to be the heroes that will get you to diamond as quickly and as easily as possible. But before we get started, let me know what hero you would buff and how you would buff them in the description down below, and let's jump into it. Now, the first character that we have is Ana, and Ana has a very high pick rate across every single rank. That being said, I don't necessarily think that she's the easiest way to get value in the lower tiers of play. I think she's good, just not maybe the best of the best for a couple of reasons. One, she can be pretty difficult to access what you can really do on the character until you develop that mechanical skill and those positions that you can take, whether you position safely against dive, aggressively to try to get extra value, hitting your skill intensive cooldowns, and of course in the metal ranks you're gonna get like no peel. Still think that she's a great character, but I don't really necessarily think that she's going to be the best for the metal rank. I'm going to put her in the B tier, especially in this meta. I think she's fine, but yeah, your life could be kind of miserable on this character if you just keep getting like run down by some like divers, random Genjis and stuff like that, and your other support just doesn't give a damn about you. So yeah, next up we do got to talk about Ashe, and I think that Ashe is actually a really good character to play in the metal rank in this season. She's really strong. I do think that, you know, you have to manage your uptime and you're better with the pocket, but overall you're a very versatile pick that's good against most of the meta, and you get a lot of value even if you're not consistently hitting shots. Of course, as your mechanical skill increases, you're going to be able to perform better, but I do think that overall, because she has forgiveness in her positioning, because you have good mobility with that coach gun, can take the high ground, can run away, you have the ability to like apply a ton of burst damage plus the dynamite. I'm going to put her in the A tier. I think that's fair. I think that's pretty good. Next up, we do got to talk about Hammond. And I do think that Hammond is actually pretty strong in the metal ranks of play, mainly because players just do not kill you. Like, they don't kill you. Sometimes you'll get people that swap, but I do feel like in the metal rank, more often than not, you'll get people that just either swap and they can't play their swaps well at all, like a Sombra that has 0 uptime, or they just don't swap. So you get extra value in that regard. I think that, of course, you're going to need to be good at Hammond. Mainly, the #1 tip I would give you to play Hammond is just to make sure that your timing is right with your team. This is such an important tip, and I know it seems kind of like, oh, well, obviously, Mills, but you'd be surprised how faster you operate than your team. And when you're going in and slamming, your team should be within line of sight of you. As many people as possible need to be able to see the people that you're slamming up. That's how you're going to get the value. Pretty simple stuff, but important. And I'm going to put Hammond in that A tier. Baptiste. I think Baptiste is amazing for metal ranks. He has a kit that is hard to surmount just automatically, right? The fact that he can 1v1 a lot of people with selfish lamps, can do a lot of damage, fight people away, has a burst heal on himself, and his ability to go up and down from the high ground to the low ground. There's a lot about this character that I think just makes him really good in the metal ranks of play. And yeah, I think he's a really easy ticket to climbing out of the metal rank as a support. You can really chain heal into Reinhardts and keep them alive like no other character can. You can get really fast ultimates. You can frag yourself. You're not afraid of dive characters at all, especially ones that aren't really that good. I'm going to put him in the S tier. I think that's fair. Next up, let's talk about Bastion. I do think Bastion is a fair bit better in the metal ranks than he is in most ranks of play. I don't necessarily think he's amazing. He's still pretty easy to counter, and it's better if you kind of find those optimal situations before you whip him out. You don't just play him all the time, but he's better. I put him in like the D tier for most ranks in my normal tier list, but for a metal rank tier list, I'm upping him to C. I think you can kind of get away with a lot on this character. Players will make mistakes into you, and yeah, it's super powerful sometimes to get some of the value that you can get on Bastion. Brig is super strong. I do think that you're gonna need to know how to play Brig well. You know, you're mainly trying to sit with someone and bodyguard them, an Ana or a Cass. You're playing really disciplined. You're trying to trigger your Inspire whenever possible, but not greeting it. And yeah, I think that she's really good. I don't necessarily think that you're going to be able to like deadlift games as much as some other characters, but you just get so much like sleeper value that yeah, I think that this character is really strong. I think she's about Ana's level. I'm going to put her a little bit above Ana, not because I think that she gets more value than Ana, but I think that she's easier to get value on than Ana is. But of course, if you have the skill set behind Ana, you can just like deadlift games. But yeah, that's not what we're talking about. Anyways, let's talk about Cassidy. Cassidy, yes, can be easy to dive. Yes, you have to have decent positioning. But right now, in his current state, He's just so goddamn good. You just get so many free kills from players just inting into your back line. They come in, they dive in, they're playing a dive character, they get stuck with your grenade, and they just die. I mean, you can shut down so many freaking characters right now. I don't really think it matters that much about your positioning. Just stand near your team, behind your tank, and you're perfectly fine. Corner to corner. I like to say you play in that little sandwich between behind your tank in front of your supports, but you know, generally I do think that Cassidy just can output so much right now. He's kind of like a cheat code right now where you just get a lot of free value. I'm gonna put him up in the S tier, maybe not the top of the S tier because you still need decent positioning. You don't have anything like exo boots to bail you out or anything like that, but you can just kind of exist there and get a crazy amount of value. Doomfist. So of course, if you're a god at Doomfist, you can smurf the low ranks. Like, everyone knows that you could smurf the low ranks on Doom, but realistically, if you're not good at Doom, like really good at Doom, it's gonna be hard to climb on him because he's just really weak right now in this meta. With Cassidy's just flying around, I mean, Cassidy's very picked. On is very picked. There's characters that are really hard for you to deal with right now. And overall, I think that he's just not really a great character to play in the metal ranks. I'm actually going to put him underneath the Bastion. I know that's kind of rough. At least it's not in the D tier. But yeah, rough time for Doomfist mains in the metal ranks to play. But of course, if you grind through those things, you get better at the character. You can definitely dominate and smurf these lobbies. But, you know, if you could do that, you would probably already be out of the metal ranks. D.Va is an interesting one because I think that D.Va is a character that doesn't really make a lot of sense to play until you get really great with her. I know that that's kind of strange, but D.Va is a character that I think has a lot less inherent value than most things, and you can often feed on this character if you don't know what you're doing. If you're, you know, engaging tanks at too close of a range, you're not really picking and choosing who you're going on, it can cause some problems. And I think that as you get better at this character, sure, she can be really dominant, just like any character can be. But until you unlock that, you're not really doing that much. I think other characters are getting you more free value. Other tanks are getting you a lot more free value. I'm going to put D.Va at the top of C tier. I think that's probably about fair. I'm sorry, you D.Va mains, but yeah, I mean, D.Va, we all know how good D.Va can be. I put her in the A tier in my real tier list, but for metal ranks of play, you're not going to be able to actually, unless you're really good at this character, you're not really going to be able to deadlift. And on top of that, I think that players play less around you as D.Va. They're like, what are you doing, D.Va? Why are you not helping us? Blah, 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 blah. It's just like a weird thing that happens in the metal ranks that if you don't play in a very traditional linear way, like I'm a tank and I'm in front of you, your teammates kind of freak out and they don't know what to do. So yeah, Echo I think is good in the metal ranks. You're aided by the fact that people are going to be able to aim a little bit worse, which is cool. Of course, you're going to need that pocket to be, you know, really being able to like kind of leverage that even better. But overall, I do think that Echo's actually really strong, and I think especially on the right maps where you have high ground and you have a way to like get into the fight, I think that Echo can get a ton of value. You just have to make sure that you're not being overly greedy and you're not like going all in over and over again on this character. And yeah, just look for value copies that get you instant value. Don't look for copies based on ultimates and you'll be fine. Like, don't copy a Genji for Blade. You're most likely gonna die before you even get it off. Anyways, let's put Echo in the B tier. Speaking of which, Genji. You know, Genji's kind of a strange one because I think that Genji's actually fairly good in the metal ranks of play for a couple of reasons. A lot of people are making a ton of mistakes against Genji. He's really good at just taking the high ground. He's really good at punishing characters like Ana and Cass. And people aren't as disciplined at peeling for you. Genji has a lot of problems in the high ranks of play because there's too many things that can shut him down when he's going for an engage. If he goes for someone and doesn't kill them like instantly, 3 people will be turned around. That doesn't happen nearly as fast in the metal ranks of play. I actually think he's pretty good. I think he's actually pretty good in the metal ranks of play. Of course, you're going to need a certain amount of mechanical skill to make him work and stuff like that, but realistically, it doesn't take a lot to become good enough on Genji to do quite a bit at the metal ranks of play. And I think that a lot of metal rank players feel how good a Genji can be against them, especially if he is playing into a comp that isn't countering him automatically. Like if he's not playing into Mays and Moiras and fly characters, if he's playing into Casses and Hanzos and stuff like that, he's having a field day. I'm gonna put him actually at the high. I'm gonna put him here. I know it seems kind of strange, but I think that He's probably like, these three are kind of about the same, I think. Anyways, let's talk about Hanzo. Yeah, I mean Hanzo. I'm gonna put Hanzo in the A tier. I think that for the metal ranks to play, you get a lot of value just by taking pot shots. You don't really have to have amazing mechanical skill to still get value on this character. You can play at a really safe, effective range, and really you're not gonna get hard focused and targeted by like a joint dive like you would if you're playing Hanzo in some of the higher ranks. I think Hanzo's just really good. He's just really good right now in general. He's really good in the metal ranks. It feels like you should be playing this character if you're a projectile DPS, if you like the playstyle of him. Yeah, I think he's actually really good. I'm gonna put him in the A tier. I think he's really strong. Junkrat Queen. Junkrat Queen's an interesting one. I think that we'll get to it when we talk about Reinhardt. I think that Reinhardt's a little bit easier to get value on in the brawl category with your team and stuff like that. You can do a lot on this character though. You can do a ton on this character in the metal ranks. But it's not the easiest thing in the world to learn. There's definitely things that could shut you down. Overall, I think this character is still really strong. And I do think that like brawl is the strongest general strategy to play in the lower ranks of play. In the metal ranks of play, brawl is kind of really strong because it just automatically plays with what your teammate's trying to do. If you're trying to play poke, you need like certain characters to play with poke that, you know, sometimes you're going to get random, I don't know, Genjis or whatever in a poke composition. Or if you're trying to play dive, the coordination is just not there. Brawl is something that like everyone kind of understands. You just like walk together and push in as a team. Just like, oh, people are dying, press W. I think brawl is automatically strong, so I'm going to put most brawl characters towards the top. But I don't think Junkrat Queen's the best one, even though she's good. Junkrat. This character gets a lot of value. He gets a lot of value in the metal ranks of play. Honestly, he gets a lot of value in general, but I think in the metal ranks of play in particular, I'm actually gonna move this around a little bit. Let's move Genji here. Let's do that. But anyways, I do think that Junkrat gets quite a bit of value. I think that in order to truly like get the most value on this character though, you can't play him on every map in every situation. He's kind of map specific, and so for that I think I knock him down a little bit, even though he's really, really good. But you do get a lot of value inherently. The slower fights happen, the less reactive people are, the less people are swapping to counter you, the less peeling there is, the more value you're getting overall. I'm going to put him about Hanzo. I actually think that on the maps he's good in, he's going to get a lot easier value than Hanzo. But Hanzo is definitely more versatile, can be played on a lot more maps. Kiriko. Now, some people are going to think that I'm going to put Kiriko low. And I actually do think that I put Kiriko low in the past in a previous metal rank tier list. But here's the reason why I do think that Kiriko is still amazing for the metal ranks. And it really just comes down to, one, very low deaths, which if you can just die very, very little on a support, it doesn't really matter what else you do. You're probably going to be carrying that game. Like, just look at the deaths of any lobby in any game. And if a support is dying like very, very little, and you keep dying very, very little, it really doesn't matter like what else you do, like at all. And Kiriko is really good at living, unlike some of the other characters like Ana, which I feel like can have a problem living a lot of the time. But even the healbot version of Kiriko is still good, mainly because you have such a strong ultimate and you're just never going to be able to die, and you can peel on a dime by just teleporting to whoever you need to and saving them just with your Suzu. And you have this whole other factor to Kiriko once you learn how to be more aggressive and use your damage. I think that Kiriko is actually an S tier pick. I think she's actually an S tier pick for the metal ranks of play. And mainly it's just because you're just not going to die on this character, which I think is just an underrated aspect of Kiriko. And if you're dying a lot on Kiriko, that's the first thing you need to evaluate before anything else. And the next up on the list is Lifeweaver. And I'm going to be a little bit harsh on Lifeweaver, mainly because I think that most of what Lifeweaver can do well, Kiriko can do better. Baptiste can do better. Lifeweaver is easier to target, has less means to protect themselves, and is harder to set up with random teammates. So like all these things combined, I feel makes Lifeweaver a bit weaker than some of these other options. Still, I think you can get him though, especially like you can do a lot with him if you're playing him as a duo in the metal ranks. I think he's like much higher. But right now, I'm just going to put him in the C tier. I think he's just like worse versions of like Bap and Kiriko in a lot of ways. I know he doesn't do the exact same things, but you're going to get easier wins with Kiriko and Bap than you are with Lifeweaver. You have to pull some magic out of your hat in order to do it with Lifeweaver. Lucio is a character that I also will put very low. And a lot of Lucio mans actually agree with me on this, where especially when you're in the low ranks of play, it feels like your value doesn't matter, or your abilities don't matter. Like, you're speed boosting your tank in, amp it up, and your tank just stands there. Or your teammates are like, heal me, and they just want you to like be a heal bot 24/7, when that's like not even where your value lies. So it feels like you have to go DPS, but then there's other supports that can DPS better. So it's like just this really weird situation where you just feel like you could do more on a different character because players don't know how to utilize what you're doing to help them. And I know that you can peel and stuff like that, but like, once again, I think other characters can do that better. And a lot of your strengths on Lucio require the entire team to understand a little bit more about advantage, disadvantage, pushing and pulling, that concept of taking space when you have advantage as a team. Teams just don't know that the lower in rank you go. I kind of give him like a similar problem to like the D.Va problem, where you kind of really need your team to kind of be working with you and not freak out when you're not doing things in a very like a very one-trick way or flat-minded way. I'm gonna put him in the C tier. I'm sorry, those of you who think he deserves higher, but you're wrong. No, I'm just kidding. But let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments down below. Mei. I think Mei's phenomenal. Mei's phenomenal because there's so many tanks that are just playing right into Mei. There's so much brawl going on. Reinhardts are just amazing in the metal ranks of play. Mei shuts them down. You have more health. You're not going to get one-shotted by Hanzo in the head. You have a block. Like, there's just a lot to this character. She's not hard to use. I think really she deserves S tier. I mean, if you're having some trouble climbing and you're just playing against these Reins and these Zaryas or whatever, just play Mei. Just play Mei and punish these characters. Honestly, a hero pool of like, as a DPS, Cass Mei. Play Cass if they're playing dive. Play Mei if they're playing brawl. GG. I mean, it's so strong. So like, I really would say play Mei a lot more. I think Mei is grossly underplayed based on her power level. Yeah, I'm gonna put her here. Mercy. So Mercy's a weird one. I do think that for the metal ranks of play, it's gonna depend on a couple of factors. It's really gonna depend on if you have a duo, of course she's stronger. If you aren't a one trick, she's stronger. I think she's good generally, but you need to have like actual good pocketable targets. Like, I don't want to see you be, I don't know, pocketing like a freaking Tracer or something. I want to see you pocketing an Ashe, an Echo, even a Cass, maybe a Sojourn. I mean, I don't know if that's 100% worth it in the metal rank, but if they're your duo, yes. I think overall you can get a lot of value in this character, and you're pretty hard to kill. But I think that if you're not a one trick, things are better. Overall, I'm gonna put her in the B tier. I think that she's like bottom of B. I think that's about fair for her. But let me know, you Mercy mains, if you agree or disagree. Do you think that she's really good in the metal ranks of play, or do you think she's better as your teammates get better and they can utilize your damage boost a lot more and go and be more aggressive and take off angles? Let me know. Moira, I mean, most of y'all know where I'm gonna put this character. Sadly, depressed Mills is gonna put this character in the freaking top of the S tier. Come on, it hasn't changed. I know this tier list has changed since the last time I've done it. Some of my opinions changed, the balance in the meta has changed, but Moira in particular is kind of just the best thing to be doing in the low ranks of play. And the reason that is because the mechanical skill isn't good enough to shut you down. You have amazing mobility, you have really good damage, and you're self-sufficient, and you can heal yourself with, like, there's just so much of this character that just makes you like an absolute menace, where you can actually just duel almost the entire cast, if not the entire cast besides tanks. And your ultimate is really strong, really hard to punish. You're gonna be abusing these Anas, and this is one of the reasons why I put Ana kind of low. Some people are gonna be like, you put Ana in B, why? It's because you have to be quite a bit better. Like, both of y'all, as Anas and Moiras increase in skill, there's a certain point where Anas actually become a threat to Moiras, but for the most part, Moiras just eat Anas for breakfast. They can fade your cooldowns besides your sleep. They can fade your nade in coalescence. You're gonna have a really hard time if you just start taking damage and you get orbed, because you have to nade yourself. You can't be aggressive. You're just gonna have to hit shots. Like, there's just a lot that the matchup is so lopsided. And I think that really you're like, I don't know, you're like a DPS support hybrid that's mainly a DPS, but you're like the best DPS in the metal rank, especially the lower rank you go. I'm putting her up here. I think she deserves it, sadly. Let's talk about Orisa. Orisa is kind of fine, I think, in the metal rank. You're not necessarily going to be able to carry on this character. You're going to be able to exist, which, you know, existing is kind of cool, and you're going to be able to, like, you know, provide quite a bit of value, but I don't necessarily think that you're providing as much value as, like, characters like Ryan. You are playing in that very traditional tank, you know, mode where you're frontlining on tank. It allows your team to play around you. Your supports are going to give you a ton of resources. I just don't necessarily think you can do as much with those resources as some of the other tanks that we'll talk about later. I'm going to put you here. I think maybe you could be a little bit lower, but this is probably about fair. Next up is Pharah. Very dependent on a pocket. Very, very dependent on a pocket. Pharah's amazing if you have a pocket. If you don't have a pocket, you can't really play this Pharah. You cannot rely on Zens keeping you orbed, Honest hitting their shots on you. It's just not going to happen. So if you're duoing or just somehow have a really good pocket that will actually prioritize you, because a lot of Mercies in the lower ranks of play will leave you. Like if you go for an aggressive flank or you're flying really far away, they'll leave you to go bail out their tank, but then you'll die because you don't have them. So it's a weird situation. I think overall a bit worse than Echo, but could still be higher on the list if you had a pocket. I think this is about fair. Ramatra's amazing. Just in general, we talked about Ramattra for the meta, but for meta ranks of play, I think Ramatra's really, really strong. You do have to learn quite a bit about how to balance your abilities, but I think Ramattra not only teaches you how to do that, but it has the tools to play poke and brawl, transfer between them. You have a lot of means to carry fights. You have a really powerful ultimate. I actually am going to put him up here. The only reason I'm not putting him higher is I think that there's some tanks that just get a little bit more value than Ramattra in the metal ranks of play, but he's definitely the tippy top of A rank. I could see him barely making it into S, but it's kind of close. Reaper is amazing in the metal ranks of play, a lot better than he is, you know, in any other rank, mainly because you just get away with a lot more, right? Now, one of the biggest tips I'll give to you on this character, you have to look for opportunities to aggressively take space with a teleport. So the high ground's free, go teleport up there, stay there for a bit, drop down onto a support, onto a squishy, get into a close effective range. I see way too many Reapers never use their teleport proactively, never duel from close range. They're like peppering people from distances, like way outside your effective range. I want you to get all up on them. Now, with Cassidy's running around like crazy, you're gonna get hindered a lot, which is a little bit annoying. I still think that you're a strong character. I'm gonna put you at the bottom of A. I think you're really good, but maybe not deserving of some of these upper tier slots. Reinhardt, a lot of people already know where I'm going to put Reinhardt. You just have a crazy high win percentage in the meta ranks with Ryan. Players know what to do around you. You're going to get a crazy amount of resources from your supports. A lot of supports are just going to pump you with heals. I will say that he could be a little bit hard to play if you just have, like, you know, a DPS Moira or like a Zen or whatever. But in most cases, he's just gonna be like a character that warps the game around him. I'm putting him at the, like, almost at the very top of S tier. I think he's probably the best tank to play in the meta ranks. And yeah, he just plays into brawl. He gets a lot of value. You can carry games yourself. You can have crazy shatters. There's a lot about him that I think is really good. I'm putting him up here. Roadhog. So yes, technically you can do a lot on this character if you're amazing at him, but still, he's just like way too weak in my opinion. I think that he's just by far like the weakest character in the game right now. And yeah, maybe you could get a couple of games with him. He's okay on certain maps and against very, very selective compositions. But yeah, no, I'm gonna put him in the D tier. I don't really think that the Hog of old that was amazing in the meta ranks of play was the Hog that could just run around the map and just hook people and insta-kill people. That's not the Hog that we have now. He's just way too easy to target. He doesn't get away with nearly as much as he did back in Overwatch 1 because he's not the only, like, he's the only tank, right? So he can't just disappear. Like back in Overwatch 1, you could have a main tank and then you could have a Hog that just disappeared and went and did his own thing. He didn't have to cook right away, right? But now, if your Hog just goes and tries to do like a solo mission, you don't have a tank. So their tank is free reigning and you're just gonna die to him. And then if the Hog tries, like, finally gets to that playoff, if he doesn't guarantee the kill, it is a complete waste. There's just a lot about Hog right now that I think he just deserves the D tier. I'm sorry. You could maybe justify C, but I'm gonna put him in D. Sigma is actually strong. I think he's a bit hard to play, so I don't necessarily know if he deserves like super high, even though I think he's really good once you learn him. Really, once you kind of unlock this character, you can understand your limits, which is like a lot of times you can be playing really far away from your team, really kind of like corral the enemy DPS and supports. If they don't have a tank or like huge numbers advantage against you, Sigma can like 1v2 1v3 squishies, and it's pretty strong. I'm gonna put him, I think I'm gonna put him right here in the A tier. Really great in the metal ranks of play, but definitely not as strong as some of the brawl stuff that we talked about. I think Ramattra is probably an easier character to climb with than Sigma, but Sigma's still strong, especially on the long distance maps. Sojourn is a phenomenal DPS, really good. I think that she could be a bit hard to play to her utmost potential unless you have the mechanical skill to hit your rail shots. Still though, even if you're not hitting consistent rail shots, I think she's really good. I'm gonna put her at the top of B. I think she's a really solid all-around DPS that gets better and better as you get better with her. But I think Ashe is probably a little bit easier to get value on with less skill, but yeah, about the same. I think Sojourn deserves this spot. Soldier 76, surprisingly, I think that Soldier is there's pros and cons. So if let's say if we're talking about like bronze, like actual the lowest tiers of play, where you can't even rely on consistent heals or anything like that, Soldier's phenomenal, right? He can run around, do what he wants. He doesn't need anybody to do what he needs to do, right? But after that, I think that in order for you to get a lot of value on Soldier, you need really great flanks. You need to be able to, you know, play really by yourself around the enemy team. You need to have decent mechanical skill, decent tracking. So there's a lot of little things that like all come together that I think make this character a bit harder to hard carry on in, I would say, like gold and plat in particular than some of the other characters. Like I think Cassidy's way better in gold and plat than Soldier is, even if maybe Soldier's better in bronze than Cass is. I'm gonna put Soldier at the bottom of A. I think that's probably about fair. There could be an argument that he could be somewhere in the middle places, but I think that these characters get a little bit easier value than him and have higher peaks than he does, but he's still pretty solid all around. Sombra, okay, this is gonna be one that might be controversial, but I'm actually putting Sombra in the D tier. I don't think that Sombra plays very well when you can't really rely on what your team is doing. I think that Sombra takes a lot of game sense to play properly, and your uptime is also a problem. Like there's a lot of things that you could just do on Sombra that is just not enough, where you're out of the fight too long. Maybe you're trying to synergize with your team and they never coordinate with you. No one's going to follow up on your hacks. No one's going to follow up on your damage or your EMPs. A character that definitely gets better and better the more and more you can predict what the enemy is going to do, and the more and more your team is going to enable you and play with you. Definitely a character that is way better in the higher ranks of play than she is in the lower ranks of play. I'm putting her in the D tier. I could maybe justify C, but I'm putting her in the D. I don't really think that she's that good in the metal ranks of play, to be honest. Next off is Sim, and we already know that Sim has some of the highest win rates in metal ranks. We know this because Blizzard themselves have told us this in a dev article, and if she has some of the highest, if not the highest win rates, we can't really put her low. Like, we can't really put her anywhere but S. I don't necessarily think that I'm gonna put her above these other characters, but I am gonna put her up here. I'll actually put her a bit above Kiriko. I think that you just get a lot of free value on this character. And while there are some complex things that you can learn about how to play this character aggressively and, you know, use TP bombs to do mini dives and things like that, just her base play style where you're just setting up turrets on a corner, denying space, and just teleporting your team into certain locations on certain maps where you get to take space first and your teammates have to, or your opponents have to retake space against you. You know, just playing a sim with like a Ryan, for instance. I honestly think that she's just really strong. I'm going to put in the S tier. Maybe not to one trick, but still a really good pick. Torb, same thing. I'm putting Torb here. I think that Torb is really strong. A lot of free value. You're going to shut down a lot of characters that don't know how to play well. Like, for instance, like I think Tracer, we all know how good Tracer is, but until Tracers get to a certain skill level, they just completely get shut down by Torbs. In order to really perform well against like Torbs and Briggs as Tracer, you need to be able to be disciplined and hit your pulse bombs consistently. Things that are hard, you know, hard for Tracers to learn. I do think that Torb deserves the upper ranks here. I'm putting him in the S tier. Speaking of which, we have Tracer, and I think that Tracer is kind of in the same range as Genji. I actually think that Tracer is a little bit worse in the metal ranks of play than Genji is, mainly because Genji has an easier time playing into, you know, characters like Cassidy, characters like Hanzo, characters like Ashe, characters like even Soldier at that skill level. Of course, you know, Tracer, as you hit pulse bombs more, as you become more disciplined, as you become better and better at the character, you can hard carry more and more, and eventually Tracer far outperforms Genji. But in the lower ranks of play, I don't think nearly as much. Genji also has a fair bit of momentum, which means that you can kind of chain off a lot easier, and then with your Nano Blade combo, I think is more powerful in the lower ranks of play than like Tracer's pulse bomb if you're not consistently hitting pulse bombs. But yeah, anyways, I'm putting Tracer about here. Still strong, still a very objectively strong character, just not what I would say is the easiest to climb to Diamond 2 and beyond if you're looking for something to climb to. It's going to take a lot of work. Still could be worth it, but it would take a lot of work. Widowmaker, I'm putting Widowmaker low. I'm putting Widowmaker in D tier. Not just because of her recent nerf, but because Widowmaker is a character that takes a ton of practice, a ton of time and effort just to get anywhere near the value of some of these other characters. There is no inherent value on Widow. There is no free value on this character. It is 100% all earned, all mechanics that you have to develop. Very, very difficult to do so. Will take you a long time to develop. Definitely not a character that is giving you any free value at all. Yeah, while you could certainly climb with this character, yes, if you become very, very good at this character, I think it's going to be very hard. It doesn't help that the character is nerfed either. So yeah, I'm putting her down in the D tier, unfortunately. Winston is a character that I think is actually hard. I'm putting him kind of in the same camp that I put these three. I think that he can do a lot, but it kind of requires you to play very, very well in your dives. You have to kind of make him work a lot of the time. I don't think he's necessarily a character that you can play into everything. There are certain comps that can shut you down completely, certain comps that have really, really high amounts of either CC or denial. Brig is really, really annoying to play against. Reaper is very annoying to play against. Even Cassidy's can be annoying unless you have a diver to go with you. Yes, you can carry on this character. Yes, you can get a lot of value in this character. Much better on high ground centric maps. But if you put the time and effort into getting good with him, of course you can carry the metal ranks of play. So I'm putting him kind of in this same little ballpark. Definitely not the easiest way to get value. And most of the time, like a character like Ryan is going to get you the win much, much easier than playing Winston. Zarya, on the other hand, I think is kind of like a better version of Orisa a lot of ways. Yes, she can be a little bit hard to learn and properly track and stuff like that, but you have a lot of agency over the games, and you're still playing into Brawl where you can just like build up really high charge and kind of being people down. I'm gonna put her at the bottom of A. Yes, you're gonna have to learn how to properly like manage your cooldowns, manage your bubbles, be quick with your reaction if you're trying to team peel bubbles, even if you don't really need to do that nearly as much. And there's less dive, which is like Zarya. One of Zarya's weakest things that she doesn't want to play against at all is like a Winston Tracer dive, right? Which Winstons and Tracers are going to be way worse in the metal ranks of play, so you're going to be able to get away with a lot more, and if people are playing Brawl into you, you can get more value. Granted, you're not the best against Reinhardt, but outside of that, I think you can get quite a bit of value. Last but certainly not least, Zenyatta. Now, of course, Zen can kind of frag his way out of whatever. If you have the mechanical skill, you're just like gonna frag out and just kill everyone on this character, right? But for some of the reasons that I put Kiriko up top, which is that she's really easy to live, have very low deaths, Zen, it's hard to have low deaths. If you can have low deaths on Zen, you're gonna hard carry, but that's kind of the trick, right? You definitely have the means to carry if you do stay alive, but whether or not you can actually stay alive is a completely different matter. And I do think that you're going to be targeted a lot. You need to have really disciplined positions. If you just keep a Discord on the tank perma, you're going to have a huge you know, a huge advantage because a lot of tanks are going to kind of int. They don't really realize just how bad that is, but you also got to realize that your tanks are going to int because they don't really know how to properly play around a Zen nearly as much as they do. Once again, it's kind of like the D.Va and Lucio problem, where like when the game isn't played in a very specific way, people don't know how to play with you and lose their minds. I still think he's better though than those characters just because you can frag out a lot more. I'm gonna put him here. I think that's probably fair. And this is where I would place, these are the easiest characters to get out of the metal ranks with. And then these are the hardest characters to get out of the metal ranks with, is what I would say. But definitely let me know if you agree or disagree with this list down below. Smash that like, subscribe if you enjoy the content, and we'll see you next time.